Good morning, foxes and badgers. It's Mrs. Martin here, and I am going to take you through our reading today. Today we are going to have a look at a poem by a poet that perhaps you might recognise the name of. We looked at another poem by this poet a couple of weeks ago called If. Today we are going to look at a poem about Romulus and Remus, who hopefully you will remember not only from our topic before Christmas, but also from our reading lesson on Monday. There's quite a few pieces of vocabulary within this poem that we might not recognise. And if you remember back to when we last looked at this poet, that's because he wrote his poems a few hundred years ago. So actually the vocabulary then was quite different to what we would use now. Let's have a look at a few of the pieces of vocabulary that are going to come up today. So it's going to say the word reared. He reared a wall around his camp. When they mention this word reared, they mean that he is bringing something up, caring for it, looking after that wall. Uninspired mud. Uninspired. I think we probably all know the meaning if you're a bit uninspired by something. It's a bit dull, a bit boring, no imagination. Mocked its height. Mocked its height. You may have heard of the word mocked before. Mocked means if you tease or if you laugh at something. So I could say that the children mocked my artwork if they were laughing at it because it's not very good. Slew. Now I think you've all probably heard of the word slay within our cobbler of Krakow text, which means to kill. So the cobbler was going to slay the dragon. And this one, though, is the past tense, so we've got slew, which means they've already killed. Foreseeing. Foreseeing means you're going to predict what might happen in the future. Imperiled hopes is at risk of being harmed. And we've got turves and clods, which means lumps of dirt or mud. When we go through the text, I'll remind you of those again. But it's really good to think about the vocabulary that's going to come up within the poem. That helps us to have a better understanding of what we are reading. Okay, let's have a read of the poem then. If you haven't read it by yourself yet, please pause the video here and make sure you have a go yourself first, and then I will read it to you and we can check our understanding. Romulus and Remus. Oh, little did the wolf child care when first he planned his home. What city should arise and bear the weight and state of Rome? A shiftless westward wandering tramp, checked by the Tiber flood. He reared a wall around his camp of uninspired mud. But when his brother leapt the wall and mocked its height and make, he guessed the future of it all and slew him for its sake. Swift was the blow, swift as the thought, which showed him in that hour how unbelief may bring to naught the early steps of power. Foreseeing time's imperilled hopes of glory, grace, and love, all singers, Caesars, artists, popes, would fell if Remus throve. He sent his brother to the gods, and when the fit were over, went on collecting turves and clods to build the wall once more. Okay, let's have a think then about what that poem means. There's quite a lot of phrases in here that we won't recognise, so we really need to dissect, and that means get a really good understanding of what the poet is on about. Let's have another look at our first verse. Oh, little did the wolf child care. Why do you think he's called a wolf child? What can we remember about Romulus and Remus? Ah, yes, the story goes that they were brought up by wolves, weren't they? When first he planned his home, what city should arise and bear the weight and state of Rome? So this paragraph is telling us about these two children who were brought up by wolves, and that one of them had planned to build this city of Rome. Let's have a look at verse 2. A shiftless westward wandering tramp, checked by the Tiber flood. He reared a wall around his camp of uninspired mud. So we're still thinking about him creating Rome, isn't he? The Tiber flood, remember the Tiber is the name of the river that runs through Rome. And it's saying he reared a wall around his camp of uninspired mud. So he built a wall, and he built the wall out of just plain mud. It wasn't anything fancy. Remember that back when Rome was first built, it was very much like settlements we would have had in England. They didn't have all of the roads and whatnot. It was just your normal mud huts on top of the hill. So he began to build the city Rome. Okay, let's have a look at verse 3. But when his brother leapt the wall and mocked its height and make. So his brother decided that he was going to invade Rome, and he was laughing at this wall his brother had created, probably going, well, this isn't going to stop anyone. Look, I managed to jump over the top. How do you expect anybody from getting to stop anyone from getting in? He guessed the future of it all and slew him for its sake. So he made a prediction that his brother was not going to look after Rome, that perhaps he might try and take charge, and so he killed him. Swift was the blow, swift as the thought. So when he slew him, he did it very quickly, which showed him in that hour how unbelief may bring to naught the early steps of power. So he's thinking in this paragraph how if he hadn't killed his brother, he would have taken all of the power. He would have decided that actually he was going to be in charge of Rome, even though his brother had done all of the hard work. Foreseeing times imperiled hopes of glory, grace, and love, all singers, Caesars, artists, popes would fail if Remus throve. So we're thinking here about how if Remus had taken power over Rome, actually Rome wouldn't have been anywhere near as successful as when Romulus was in charge. We wouldn't have had Caesar, the artists, the popes, the singers, perhaps Remus was not the leader that Rome needed. He sent his brother to the gods. Remember, he slew him, so he's talking here about his brother dying. That's what he means by that. And when the fit were over, went on collecting turf and clods to build the wall once more. So once he had killed his brother, he carried on with his plan. He carried on building that wall around Rome to try and protect the people that lived there. Now remember with this one here, Oa, that's where the author doesn't put that letter in, that V that we would put in nowadays. That's quite an old-fashioned way that quite a lot of authors and poets used to write. Okay, let's have a look at our questions today now that we have a better understanding of the text. We are going to start with our normal retrieval questions. So make sure you number these in your book for me, please. And because they are retrieval, that means we just have to skim and scan the text until we find the answer. They're all in there. So who were the wolf children in the poem? Now, hopefully we all know this from our background understanding of this as well. What did one brother do to the other to get Rome? And what did the triumphant brother build? Those are your retrieval ones. So there's the ones where you can just find the answer in the text. The rest of the questions are going to take a little bit more thinking, okay? So you're going to have to use those inference skills. A few of the things we've spoken about as we have gone through and dissected the poem, we've looked at it in detail and we've discussed what it all means. A few of them you're going to have to think about for yourself, okay? So what I would like you to do is to have a go for me now at answering all of these questions. Remember to send in your answers so your teacher can have a look at how well you have done.